Created by Bill Finger, Bob Kane, and Jerry Robinson all the way back in 1940 and debuting in Batman #1, the Joker is likely the greatest villain in the history of comic books. And across his lifespan, the Joker has done so many nefarious, sadistic, or cruel things that it's hard to keep track of. Yet there are times that he's carried out acts that verge on being wholly inappropriate and way beyond the lines of good taste, even by the standards of comics. And that's what we're here to talk about today. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 most inappropriate Joker storylines. Number 10. Raining down poisonous glass, lovers and madmen. 2008's Lovers and Madmen arc offered a fresh spin on the Joker's origin and his first meeting with the Dark Knight. Introduced as a regular fella named Jack, the clown prince of crime is still just as sinister as you'd might expect, and that's perfectly encapsulated in the particular plan that he concocts to make his mark on Gotham City. That plan involves sending a giant blimp in the direction of Gotham's Twin Towers. Despite the best efforts of the GCPD, this blimp reaches its target and explodes upon impact. But it's not the explosion that's the major issue here. For the greater concern for the residents of the city is the shards of glass that were housed inside the blimp. Ever the devious, deranged sort, the Joker went one better than merely filling a blimp with shards of glass, for those pieces were actually all doused in poison. As such, the sidewalk below soon starts to pile up with dead bodies that are all sporting a familiar and chilling smile. It may not be the most disturbing act the jester of genocides carried out in his 82-year history, but this Lovers and Madman act is definitely all kinds of messed up. Number 9. Not having noticed that Harley vanished for a year to have a baby. Injustice: Gods Among Us, Year 2. Whether it's the two main video games or the comic book stories, the world of Injustice: Gods Among Us is a truly twisted one. With Superman having become a full-on global dictator after being duped into killing the pregnant Lois Lane and the entire population of Metropolis, by the Joker no less, here we have heroes fighting heroes and villains fighting villains as the familiar faces of DC Comics are forced to choose whether to side with the Man of Steel's tyrannical ways or opt to oppose the almighty Kryptonian. For Harley Quinn, she's alongside the likes of Batman, Green Arrow, and Black Canary in wanting to bring an end to Superman's reign of terror. Shockingly, the Injustice comics actually reveal that this iteration of Harleen has a daughter. After learning that Canary is pregnant, and the recently murdered Emerald Archer being the father, the Maid of Mischief reveals that she herself is a mother to a daughter named Lucy. Now 4 years of age, Lucy has lived with Harley's sister since she was born, with Quinn explaining how Joker would never have accepted a child. Making all of this even more jarring, Quinzel details how she went missing for an entire year during the pregnancy and that upon her return, her puddin' acted like he didn't even notice. That's cruel beyond all belief. Number 8. Eating China. Emperor Joker. Rather than happening in a Batman story, as is so often the case, the antics on display here actually happened in a Superman tale titled Emperor Joker. Released in 2001, here we find the Joker interacting with longtime Man of Steel villain Mr. Mxyzptlk. A godlike imp with the ability to warp reality, the curious Mix decides that he'd like to see what would happen if he gave just 1% of his powers to a human. So step forward, the Joker. The Joker tricks the imp into handing over 99.99% of his powers instead, and thus Mr. J becomes one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. With Superman on a mission to bring a halt to Joker's spree of deranged depravity, Batman's nemesis sets about on having as much fun as he can with his new capabilities. Here the Joker murders Lex Luthor, gleefully slaughters Jimmy Olsen, and tortures and kills Batman forever by reanimating him and repeating the process every single day. And as for China itself, well, the Emperor Joker bizarrely eats an entire nation and its population, all the whilst making quips that are at best inappropriate and at worst outright racist. Eventually, Mr. Mxyzptlk and the Spectre rebuild reality and save the day, and it's a good thing they did. Number 7. Poisoning a group of innocent children. The Dark Knight Returns. Poisoning somebody is never cool, and poisoning a group of people is even less cool, and poisoning a group of children, well, that's about as low as you can go. Of course, this is the Joker we're talking about here, though, and this is a figure who is devoid of morals if it means that he can get one over on the Caped Crusader. In Frank Miller's seminal The Dark Knight Returns, killing off a bunch of kids is just one of the many misdemeanors carried out by the Harlequin of Hate. This 1986 tale is one of those rare ones where the Joker actually dies, like for real, and prior to this fight, Batman has been lured to a country fair where he found the corpses of hundreds of children who the Joker had gleefully handed out poisoned cotton candy to. Rough, right? Number 6. Using a baby as bait to murder Sarah Essen. No Man's Land. A year-long story that ran across all of the Batman-driven titles throughout the entirety of 1999, the basic crux of this tale is that Gotham City is left to fend for itself after being struck by a major earthquake. While best efforts were initially made to evacuate as many Gotham citizens as possible, the US government gets to a point where they decide to destroy any bridges or entry and exit points to the island and declare the area as a veritable no-man's land. In a dog-eat-dog world, the grim streets of Batman's hometown become far too much for even the Dark Knight and his associates to deal with plentiful villains stepping up to claim Gotham as their own. The Joker opts to take a rather different tact, and by that I mean that the Clown Prince of Crime kidnaps all the babies of Gotham City and takes residence in the old GCPD building. It's poor Sarah Essen, the second wife of Jim Gordon, who eventually finds the Jester of Genocide on Christmas Day. With Essen's gun pointed on the Joker as he holds an infant, Mr. J throws the child in the air. As Sarah instinctively catches the youngster, Joker shoots her dead. Number 5. Torturing Harley Quinn. Death of the family. Unfortunately for Harleen, there have been several times where readers have seen her being tortured or abused by the Joker across the years. What makes the torture of Harley Quinn even more twisted in Running with the Devil, itself a part of the larger Death of the Family arc, is how this sinister physical torment is matched by the revelation that Quinzel is not the first Harley. Having been presumed dead, this Suicide Squad tale finds the Joker returning to action, reclaiming his face, which had been skinned off of him previously as part of said death, and looking to teach Quinn a lesson. That lesson was, as ever, that she should be subservient to him and that she should ditch Task Force X. With the Maid of Mischief unwilling to do this leads to a fight between the two which results in Harley being poisoned and then chained up in a dark, dank dungeon. It's in this dungeon that the reveal is made that Harley Quinn is not the first of her kind. In classic Joker fashion, this reveal is accompanied by the skeletal remains of those purported other Harleys. Quinn would eventually manage to escape her shackles, but by then, the Clown Prince of Crime had already turned his sights to Barbara Gordon as his larger Death of the Family plan continued to come together. Number 4. Traumatizing Tim Drake. Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. To this day, there is one scene in Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker that is hugely uncomfortable to watch. Of course, that scene is the reveal of what happened to poor Tim Drake back in the day. In the Beyond landscape, Tim was never really mentioned in this show, which took the world of Batman the Animated Series and jumped ahead to 2039. Barbara Gordon is now Commissioner of Neo Gotham, Dick Grayson left Gotham years prior for reasons not disclosed, and Terry McGinnis is this time's Batman under the mentorship of an elderly Bruce Wayne. But Tim? It's only with the 2000s Return of the Joker movie where we finally get to see what happened to this one-time Robin. At the crux of this picture, the mysterious re-emergence of the long-dead Clown Prince of Crime is explained by the Joker having put a microchip in Tim Drake decades prior. Without Tim even realizing it, this allowed the Jester of Genocide's consciousness to take over Drake's now adult body and make that vessel a Joker replicate. Earlier on in the film, a flashback shows how Tim was kidnapped and tortured for 3 weeks by the Joker and Harley Quinn. Infected with the same chemicals that made the Joker, well, the Joker, this Robin is introduced to Batman and Batgirl as Joker Jr. once our heroes locate him. Upon being tasked with shooting the world's greatest detective, Tim manages to get control of his senses just long enough to fire at and seemingly kill the Joker. From there, the youngster emotionally breaks down in a sequence that was stunningly, heartbreakingly delivered by those behind Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. Number 3. Making Jim Gordon look at his naked, crippled daughter. The Killing Joke. Sure, The Killing Joke is one of the greatest Joker stories of all time, but still, there are certain moments that overstep the line of good taste. Then again, that's kind of what makes this Alan Moore and Brian Bolland tale so special. It shows the Clown Prince of Crime at his most maniacal, twisted, and cruel. Here, the Joker is on a mission to destroy Jim Gordon. Unfortunately for Barbara Gordon, she was unplanned collateral damage in this scheme. While Barbara and her old man enjoy a drink, she answers the apartment door to what she believes is one of her pals. Instead, Babs is greeted by the sight of the Joker, who immediately shoots her on sight. Now, this was the moment where Barbara, who was at the time protecting Gotham as Batgirl, was shockingly crippled, with a bullet having damaged her spine and left her without the use of her legs. Even more twisted than this act, though, it's later revealed that the Joker and his goons had stripped the paralyzed body of Barbara and taken naked photos of her. These photos were then enlarged and shown to the kidnapped and restrained Jim Gordon, with the Harlequin of hate mocking Jimbo as he looks to crack the GCPD commissioner. Number 2. Everything about 2008's Joker graphic novel. Released 3 months after Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight hit the silver screen, this 2008 graphic novel, simply titled Joker, very much pulled visual inspiration from Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Clown Prince of Crime. Without the shackles of standard continuity to play with, the writers unleashed likely the most twisted version of the Joker ever seen in the character's history. This tale is narrated by Johnny Frost, a new henchman of the Jester of Genocides. Much like so many others, Johnny of course eventually becomes just another victim of the Joker's. But his doomed journey is one that at least gives readers a full glimpse into the depravity that Mr. J is capable of. Dropping a healthy dollop of Leatherface into this iteration of the Joker, the rogue literally skins alive a poor fella called Monty, and he forces a bank manager to masturbate over a picture of his own daughter. For Johnny, the Harley Quinn of hate sexually abuses his wife to make things even for Frost, having met with Joker's rival Two-Face. But that's not it for Frost. He is mercifully put out of his misery as this story concludes, where he's infected by Joker's laughing gas. However, here his face is messed up after Joker shot him in it, causing his newbie henchman to fall from a bridge to his death. And number 1, romanticizing and normalizing abusive relationships. Now, one could fill such a video solely with entries involving the Joker's treatment of Harley Quinn. While the Maid of Mischief has been mentioned a couple of times here already, it's only fair to dedicate a whole entry to how the relationship between her and her puddin has been incredibly inappropriate over the decades. Granted, recent years have seen Quinn presented as her own strong character who doesn't need the Joker, but for years, this simply wasn't the case. For those unaware, Harleen Quinzel was a successful psychologist at Arkham Asylum prior to meeting the Joker. Soon seduced by the charms of the Clown Prince of Crime, she helped Mr. J escape Arkham and she became his sidekick and love interest. The problem is, this love interest role was often largely a one-sided affair. While Harley forever pined after the Joker and did all that she could to please him, he would show disdain towards her, mock her at every turn, and would at times take to physically assaulting her. The relationship was framed like this for years, with Quinn always simply shrugging off the Clown Prince of Crime's hateful, possessive, controlling, violent, and outright abusive ways. Whatever heinous act he did or twisted words he used, Harley Quinn would always go back to the Jester of Genocide. While this tandem was at times positioned as a jovial, slapstick-esque Bonnie and Clyde at times, the reality is that the Joker had and has no true love for Quinn. She is merely just another plaything who's disposable to the Harlequin of hate. For Quinzel, she is a mentally ruined victim who has her own issues in addition to having spent years with a Stockholm Syndrome type tie to her abuser. And there we go, my friends. Those were the 10 most inappropriate Joker storylines. Please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. And if you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ, where the O is a 0. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye.